Great. Thank you so much for this amazing introduction. I will just share my slides and we will start. Great. So today's topic is using artificial intelligence and new technologies in the teaching and communication of conflictual histories and polarizing topics. We will focus on the Histories from Belene project, which is an innovative project of the Sofia Platform Foundation. And just before I start, I will just say a few words about our team and also all the partners and important people that have made this project possible. So I'm a project coordinator at the Sofia Platform Foundation. We turned 10 last year. So over the last 10 years, we have been working on the issue of memory, remembrance, history, understanding the history and also legacy of the communist period in Bulgaria, as well as on civic education. So that includes a range of initiatives engaging young people, as well as formal and informal educators and the wider society as we strengthen civic education, civic competencies, and civil society engagement in Bulgaria. And this project has been made possible by the support and incredible work of a range of partners. First and foremost, that's the wider team at the Sofia Platform Foundation, but equally importantly, Childish. Childish is a Bulgarian software firm that is and they're the experts behind the platform and all technical aspects of it. We also work with several researchers and historians. That includes Professor Daniela Kolevo from Sofia University, Professor Momchil Metodiev from New Bulgarian University, Borislav Skochev, who's an important researcher who published the definitive book on the Belene camp, which you'll hear more about later today. Our partners from Ani Major, that did the animations, Georgi and Georgi, who did the photography that you'll see a lot of the videos. Local partners in Belene, and Belene is a town on the Danube, so the Belene Island Foundation, the mayor of Belene, and others. And last but not least, our donor, the American for Bulgarian Foundation, with whose support this project has been made possible. Okay. So first of all, you heard a bit about me and you heard a bit about the organization I represent, but I'd love to hear who is in the virtual room today. So if you could please go to the chat and just write your name and what you do. That would be great. If you're a researcher, if you're an educator, if you're a practitioner working in civic education and other topics, great. Nice, thank you. Okay, please keep adding to the chat, saying who you are and what you do. And then my other question is, have you got any previous experience using artificial intelligence, whether you have developed such projects or if you're an educator, perhaps you have used them, such projects or tools in your teaching? Every day? Okay. Okay, great. We'll come to this in our discussion later. So I pause this for now. We'll get back to it later. So. Now, I'm curious, in your opinion, and please again use the chat, what connects the following? GLAC, re-education through labor camp, forced resettlement, property expropriation, denial of further education, and denial of steady employment. Please use the chat to jot your ideas. Okay, wall segregation, sadness, tyranny, violence, okay. Okay, great. Dictatorship, trauma. Okay. So my responses, totalitarian regimes, forms of political persecution, trauma, personal but also collective, and conflictual past, which touches on dictatorships, violence, and others. And these are aspects, perhaps with the exception of Gulag, because that's the term used for the Soviet forced labor camps and the re-education through labor that happened during the Soviet times. These are elements of the testimonies that our survivors from the Belene camp talk about. And so this you hear about in our project and also in the testimonies. Now, again, I'd like to hear from you. Use the chat just to indicate true or false. You can just type T for true or in full, F or false. So with the first statement, is it true or false, in your opinion, that there is agreement on the history and legacy of the communist regime? And I should specify probably in Bulgaria. True or false, in your opinion? False, false, okay. False. Okay, the next one. Most Bulgarians have a positive view of the communist regime. True or false, in your opinion? You don't know? Okay, false. And my last one, last statement to get your thoughts on. Communism has been studied in the history curriculum of Bulgaria for 10 years now. True or false? False, true, false. Okay. Okay, let's find out. Okay, so this is an article. I know it's in Bulgarian, and maybe it's a bit small. The text taken from a leading Bulgarian weekly newspaper. Article is dated 17th of January 2018. In Bulgarian, the communist period finally enters the history textbooks. So 2018. That wasn't that long ago. And it's definitely less than 10 years. Then another article from 2018, and trust me, hasn't changed much. Political polarization as Bulgaria commemorates victims of communism. And the last one comes from a study, a sociological study that the Sofia Platform Foundation did with our partners from a leading sociological agency in Bulgaria, looking into what Bulgarians think about the past. And as you see, it's a very mixed picture. So knowledge about the period from 1944, 1989, 35, almost 36% say they know to a very high extent, while 12.2 say to a very little extent. Their judgment of the period is actually less than 50% say it's rather positive, and rather negative 24%. So we see a very mixed picture of knowledge and opinions about the period. If you're interested to read more, on our website, belene.camp, there is some of this information and the results from the study available. So it's still a very polarizing topic in Bulgaria. While communism has now finally been introduced in the history curriculum, there are certain aspects or topics that are not studied. Another thing that's really important as well, just setting the wider context, we don't have a memorial place, we don't have a place of memory where we could commemorate the victims of communism. There isn't a museum just yet. Hopefully in the next few months or years, we see that commitment, but there isn't a place where people could commemorate. So the historical context, during the communist period, and that is the period of 1944 to 1989, more than 80 forced labor camps and prisons existed in Bulgaria. And that number includes main camps as well as satellite camps. And you see here on the map, basically they existed all throughout the country. What you see in the middle is a picture of Belene, which was the largest forced labor camp. It also existed the longest, and more than 15,000 people. We don't know the exact number. This number is based on historical research that has been done on available documentation, but a lot of the archival materials have been destroyed or lost, and therefore it's not possible to know the exact number of people who were sent there and the number of people who sadly passed away while they were in Belene. The picture there is a reconstruction of the main camp gate in Belene. It had a very famous sign, which in Bulgarian says, "Da човек звучи гордо." It's a quote attributed to Maxim Gorky, the famous Soviet author, "Man that has a proud sound." And on the other side of the gate, it was the writing, another quote, "If the enemy doesn't surrender, he's to be destroyed." So this is what the internees arriving at the Belene camp saw, literally first thing. And a couple of other things, just a couple of pointers about Belene. Belene is a town on the Danube. The camp was situated on several of the Danubian islands on the Bulgarian territory. And it had a network of several campsites or buildings. Currently, what used to be Site 1 is the active prison. And of the other sites of the camp, what you see here is what we call Site 2. And it is the part that could be visited. And some buildings, although buildings from the later period, can be seen. So when we talk about teaching and communicating conflictual history, we can use a number of methods. This is not an exhaustive list, and these are the more traditional, what we'd consider traditional approaches. Whether we'd have exhibitions, museums, memorials, books are quite important as well. The opportunities for meetings with survivors, school projects, using different forms of art, public events and debate, and others. On this slide, the pictures you see come from different initiatives of Sofia Platform Foundation over the last 10 years. You see an installation that was done. This is the picture with the people by the door frame. This was an installation that was done in relation to the what we call the revival process in the 80s, when the Bulgarian Turks were forced to adopt Bulgarian names. And this was a very conflictual period of Bulgaria's very recent past. You see a picture from an exhibition that was done in Lovech. Lovech is a small town in Bulgaria, but it was also the place where one of the most horrific forced labor camps of the period were located. And so this exhibition tells the story of the survivors. Then you see a picture of one of the survivors from the camps. Sadly, she recently passed away, but she was very active, taking part in different meetings and events where she could interact with people in person. And last but not least, you see a picture of one of our partners and collaborators and his book about the Belene camp, which is the definitive and most complete and detailed account of the camp. And when we think of methods, we have archival research. Oral history is very important, so collecting these first-hand testimonies and memories of the survivors. Okay. We have it's just some of them, and these methods are quite important when it comes to our project. So we interviewed 6 survivors of the Belene camp, Bosna, and Lovech. we interviewed 5 men, as you can see, and 1 woman. She was the last survivor of the Belene camp, and she also spent time in Bosnia. Our interviews used oral history as the main method of historical research and capturing these narratives. Just a note how this all came about. So after a number of years organizing an annual summer school for young people, doing exhibitions, doing different public events and debates, working with survivors who were very open and active and willing to share their testimonies and experiences with people in different events, but also being very cognizant that these people are quite elderly, as we focus on people who were sent to the camps in the earlier period, in the 50s, which means that these people, the survivors that are still with us, are in their late 80s or 90s. We knew that it would be very important to capture their testimonies and their histories for the future generations. And so we were inspired by a project in the States, which did what we did with our survivors. So they interviewed survivors of the Holocaust. So using oral history, doing very extensive interviews with these survivors, then using new technologies, they powered virtual conversations that tap into these extensive interviews, so that when a visitor goes to the website, they would ask the question to the survivor and they'll respond as if having a natural conversation. So inspired by this project in the States, we did more than 2 weeks of interviews with these 6 survivors, resulting in more than 3,000 questions across the 6 of them. We then spent a lot of time editing so that these extensive interviews become individual videos that we could then, working with our partners from Childish, the software company I mentioned, we then programmed using artificial intelligence and complicated software that I can't go into the nitty-gritty in terms of the technical aspect of it, so that we can have a digital platform where visitors could go and ask their questions. So this is as close to a natural conversation you'd have if you meet one of them in person. And the website also, when you have the conversation, there will be some hints and suggestions, as well as instructions how to conduct the conversation. Of the 6, 3 are available in Bulgarian, and we are in the process of translating in total of 4 of those testimonies, so that visitors from other countries could also learn about the period and hear firsthand from our survivors what happened, why they were sent to the camps, what they think of communism, and the legacy of the period. Now, in addition to the virtual conversations with survivors, there's another element to the platform, and this is the virtual tour of Belene, because it's important to understand what's the wider context, and hopefully encourage people to visit Belene and the camp. Now, what you see here are some snippets of the production process. So the virtual tour uses video, uses animation, uses also archival materials. So on one of the videos, I won't be playing that one today, but in one of the videos you see a Bulgarian journalist reading an excerpt from an actual archival document about the Lovech camp. So we really tried to bring these different tools and means to tell the story in as compelling a way as possible, especially noting that while you can visit some of the buildings in Belene, a lot of it has been destroyed. There isn't a memorial site, or there isn't a museum there that tells this story. So hopefully by providing this context, more people would be kind of developing an interest and starting to understand the history and the legacy and impact about it. So just a couple of words where we are at now. So as I mentioned, 3 of the virtual conversations are available in Bulgarian. We're in the process of developing, and there's a lot of post-production work associated. So 3 more testimonies will be available on our website. We're also developing an app that will include 3D simulations of some of the other buildings, sites of the camp that are no longer available, so not a visitor wouldn't see anything. So by having these simulations, it will be possible to get a even better idea of what it was like. We have also been running teacher training so that we can train teachers how to use these resources in their teaching practice. So we have just done a series of 4 training events with Bulgarian teachers, and hopefully there'll be many more similar activities, and we'll see more teachers using this. And on the technical side, something that we are very excited, we are undergoing an integration of a new software and a new way of how the virtual conversations happen, so the back end of it, which would mean that for some time the virtual conversations would be taken down as we undergo this integration and do the testing and making sure that the conversations work. And the aim of this is to improve the user experience on the site, but also improve our work of the wider team working on this. As you can imagine, it is a lot of work having 6 conversations with people answering more than 3,000 questions. Okay, so I will exit the presentation here and would go to the website, Histories from Belene, and have a taster of what we have developed. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen. I'll just check that the sound is okay. Okay, so this is on the website. It's under the Tour of Belene. And our website, as you can see, has been translated into English and German, with only the virtual conversations being translated into English. So the virtual tour is available in Bulgarian, English, and German. And I today would like to show you the video about campsite 1. So with all stops on the tour, you have a little screen that gives you a little bit of information and a little bit of context about the place. And I will now select to proceed to the experience.
Обществото знаеше много добре, тъй като прекалено много хора минаваха през тези лагери. Лагеристите отиваха в лагера въз основа на решение на някаква комисия, която никога не беше виждала нито един от тях. Явно, че системата не беше предвидена да ни гали по главите, въпреки елегантното наименование на институцията – трудово-възпитателно общежитие, което се управляваше от културен съвет. Лозунга, с който биваха посрещани новите обитатели на острова, врагът престава да е враг тогава, когато е физически унищожен, беше един хубав намек, което трябва да ти въздейства предварително върху психиката. Изолацията беше пълна, основната доминанта беше глада, която определяше цялото ти отношение към действителността. Човечността в лагера беше последното нещо, за което някой може да се сети. Трябваше да се разбере, вие не сте нищо, вие не сте хора. Ние можем да правим с вас каквото поискаме. Вие сте наша собственост. Това, което се случи с лагеристите вътре, трябваше да поддържа проникващ в гръбначния мозък перманентен страх, че може и върху тебе да се стовари репресията. Лагера смилаше хората. Почнаха полека да губят всякаква индивидуалност. И, между другото, никой, който е минал през това нещо, не е останал цялостната личност, която е бил преди това. Тя е по някакъв начин накърнена.
Okay, so that was also a short introduction in a way to our survivor, Nicola Daskalov, with whom we're now going to have a short virtual conversation in English. So just share another screen now. Second. Okay, so. So we're back to the website, Histories from Belene, and we select Talk to a Survivor menu, Nicola Daskalov.
Лагера смилаше
It's a short
хората.
introduction to him.
Почнаха.
And here in the chat, you can ask a question. You could use your mic or you could use the keyboard. Now, for some reason, my laptop doesn't like me using the mic, so I will type in my questions. We'll ask Nicola just a couple today so that we can have more time for discussion. But he can answer more than 400 questions. So
Името ми е Никола Димитров Даскалов. След един месец ще стана на 88. Често пъти съм си задавал сам на себе си този въпрос. От една страна, може би, съм си го просил сам. От друга страна, може би че съм бил чисто и просто за попълване на бройката, да си изпълни съответното управление на държавна сигурност плана. Тези лагери далече не беха създадени за да водят истинска реална борба с активни врагове на режима. Техната цел беше съвършено друга. По косвен път да се влияе на останалата част от населението. Не можеш да вкараш цялото население в лагер и да го научиш на послушание, да го възпиташ, тъй като лагерите се наричаха трудово-възпитателни общежития. Много елегантно, нали? Добре звучи. Едно общежитие, в което малко се трудиш и се възпитаваш. Ти си иначе невъзпитан човек. Но, може би, малко съм и подпомогнал хората. Вероятно съм бил взет на намерник поне половин година, ако не е малко повече, когато ми изпратиха един провокатор да ми предложи участие в конспирация и прибързано да почне да ми обяснява какви задачи ще ми се възлагат и да ми възлага предварителни задачи, преди още да съм дал съгласие за участие в конспирация, да търся взривни материали, бигфордови шнурове, капсули, взрив, самия взрив, да ми разправя как трябва да взрива моста на Боаза по пътя София-Варна. Аз се направих, че нищо не разбирам от тая работа. Го запитах, че как ще взриви този хубав железен мост. Ами каза, отгоре върху настилката слагаш двете шашки и гръмват. Разбирах достатъчно от проблема, за да знам, че те ще изхвърлят две шепи чакъл дагоре, а мене ще ме подигнат тъмен толкова колкото е необходимо да увисна на бесилката. В един момент на този юнак му казах, виж какво, Лако, кажи ми още двама души, които участват в тази организация, за да реша, ще си присъединя ли или не. Беше ама толкова явна провокация, че няма къде повече. Повече не го видях, докато не ме арестувах. Това говори, че съм бил включен в някакъв, може би, предварителен списък.
Okay, so let me just plug in my headphones. Sorry. Okay, so this was just a taster. In June, the full conversation with Nicola will be available in English. So please do come back to our website. Also follow us on social media to get updates so that you can really immerse yourselves in this conversation and his testimony and his story. But having seen this, there's some considerations. So one is ethics. As I mentioned, we did very extensive interviews with these 6 survivors. And before we interviewed them, we did an extensive process of researching survivors, speaking with them, finding out about their time in the camps, then doing sort of a background check. And that is to verify using available resources, available materials, the archives, to corroborate their story, to make sure that we're telling a genuine story, because it's really important to have this kind of historical check done. We also sat down with them to explain the project, the idea, and how we're going to use this data. And these are their testimonies. So as they said on the interviews, just cut into the videos. We have not changed or altered in any way their testimonies. We're not going to do voiceovers on the interviews. So visitors to the website will hear the survivors' own voices. We have translated them. And we are not going to use this any further, as in we're not going to then use the new technologies, the new tools, and as AI further grows, to, I don't know, create other further virtual conversations or have their voices speak in English or in German or other languages. We're trying to be as authentic as possible while using the new technologies. And now some practicalities. So one, we need really good internet. So on one of the pictures, you see a demonstration of the project at an event in Madrid last year, where we, for the first time, unveiled the conversation with Nicola Desclov in English, and we knew that good Wi-Fi would be very important in order to have this kind of engaging experience. So whenever showcasing this or thinking about integrating it, say if there's to be a visitor center built on Belene, we need really good internet infrastructure in order to use this successfully. Then another very practical consideration, but very important one, is engaging educators, so that this tool can reach young people, students, and can really be integrated in teaching and learning at school, but also in formal, informal ways. And so you see a picture of one of our recent trainings with teachers, where we introduced them to different methods of teaching conflictual topics, including the history of the communist period in Bulgaria. And last but not least, our survivors. Of the 6 we interviewed, 3 are sadly no longer with us. And so it's really important to preserve their memory and reach to as many people as possible, whether through social media, media appearances, other projects, so that we can showcase and make this product as it is a digital platform, that's a product available to others. And because we're talking about new technologies, I mentioned the project that inspired us, and here you see that project. So this is a project of the University of Southern California and the Sofia Foundation in the States, where they did these virtual conversations. They're available on the website. They also did the hologram version. So in the smaller picture below, you see the survivor they interviewed, his hologram version. And this person has also done a lot of public speaking and events where he's also discussed the importance of having these virtual conversations available for the future generations. So I encourage you to visit the project, their website, and have a look and take part in the virtual conversation with Pinchas Gutter, who's a big inspiration to us and the work you see here. So we talked about virtual conversations as some of the new technologies in history education and communicating conflictual topics. There are video testimonies as well, virtual museums and exhibits, interactive educational platforms. There's augmented reality, digital storytelling, virtual reality, and combinations of those. And I'll share a couple of examples. These are just examples. We're not saying these are good or bad. These are just some of the projects that have been developed, and hopefully more will become available. And I also encourage us as educators, as practitioners, to also think about the ethical aspects, the historical accuracy of these tools. Reason I'm saying this, on the first picture here, you see a virtual exhibition that's has been developed by the Armenian Genocide Museum Institute Foundation, and it is a virtual exhibition about Smyrna, which was the name before the 20s, and it's an immersive. So you go to the website and you can basically see all these pictures and images. You also have Voices from the Front, which is the picture here below, and these are virtual conversations, again, with people related to the Second World War. This time, war veterans, nurses, and other personnel involved in the war. And this is a project of the National Second World War Museum in the States, again, using virtual conversations based on extensive interviews. But my provocation to you today are the projects that use artificial intelligence. One is virtual conversations with figures from history, people from antiquity, such as the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, and others with whom it's just not possible to have such extensive conversations, video interviews, first-hand testimonies. And the Living History AI project, which you see with the little figure up, which is a project basically using augmented reality, using historical images, documents, and testimony to create these immersive environments. And our final example on the slide comes from the UK, which is probably one of the first and earliest projects using virtual conversations, again, based on extensive interviews with survivors, where 3D interactive programming was used so that young people went to the museum and they had their 3D glasses on to have this immersive experience with 11 survivors. Couple I have not included come from technologies such as VR. An example from the Sofia Foundation, again involving the survivor we saw on the previous slide, is a VR film, which is his an immersive experience about Pinchas' experience being taken to Majdanek, which was a concentration camp. There is a project in Sarajevo in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is an immersive museum, again using VR. And there is the Auschwitz VR project, which is a application creating a digital reconstruction of the grounds of the camp as it was in May 1944. So as you see, these are just some of the projects. There are others, and it seems many more in development that tell these stories, engage wider audiences, but most importantly, are great resources for educators in their work with young people, teaching and learning the histories, such as the one we're telling from Belene. So I stop with my presentation here, and I would now like to open the floor to questions about the project. I also have a look at the chat.